Hey, not every phone brings you closer to God, but any phone can cut you off from your community, especially if it shows too much, especially if it doesn't have a certificate. In today's episode, we'll show you a world where every click can be a sin, where apps are subject to rabbinical censorship, where factory reset requires permission from a spiritual supervisor, and where a woman may be allowed to call, but not call on her own. Welcome to a world where electronics have a soul, and where even the washing machine has to be kosher. Not every smartphone is a sin. Not every iPhone is a threat. But every phone has to be purified from the internet, from apps, from anxiety, and from its own history. In the Haredi world, there are phones that have been saved, a version with a soul, software without temptation. So-called kosher smartphones are a special category of devices, most often Androids that have undergone radical software surgery. No app store, no browser, frozen system, content filters, and only a handful of approved apps. Modifications are done by authorized rabbinic service centers. Companies like Tagnet, Gaterphone, Chomatech offer ready-made solutions that meet all the guidelines, from hard system locks to full activity monitoring and central access management. Every phone has a unique ID number registered in the Registry of Kosher Devices, run by the Vaad Hatikshorot. It works like a book of souls, only with IMEI numbers. The most commonly allowed apps are phone, messages, Hebrew calendar, maps to get to synagogue, a digital prayer book, sometimes a contact app to reach a teacher or rabbi. The rest? Forbidden, even a flashlight, if it hasn't been certified. Example: Miriam, a social services worker, received a work phone with email access from her boss. Her rabbi banned her from using it after hours. She got a second phone, a kosher one. When her child asked to watch a cartoon, the answer was, "This phone doesn't know what YouTube is." These devices cost more than regular smartphones, despite doing much less, because behind the filter stands trust, and trust is expensive, not only in money, in loyalty. Software versions are updated by a central office changing a password, only with authorization. Factory reset, only with rabbinic approval. Every user has a spiritual system administrator, like an IT admin and confessor rolled into one. Children get only under 18 versions, auto-blocking images, links, messages from unknown numbers. These phones look like normal ones, but are spiritually burned clean, literally. Before a phone is handed to a child, there's a blessing. May this device not distract from the study of Torah, and not bring impurity into this home. Such ceremonies are regular in some yeshivas. In the UK or US, you'll find parental controls, content filters, safety settings, but you won't find a full-blown software kashrut system woven into the fabric of a community with blessings and bans attached. This is not just a phone. It's a statement. I don't need everything. I only need what won't destroy my soul. And even if the battery is weak and the screen is dim, the screen is not supposed to be the light here the human is. In an age of digital whiteboards, e-learning, and Google Classroom, there are places where school looks like something from 100 years ago, not because there's no money, because there is a choice, a conviction that a screen hides the truth, and that a click destroys the concentration of the soul. In Haredi schools, technology is treated as a threat. In the education of girls, as unnecessary. In the education of boys, as an obstacle. The result? No computers, no projectors, no Wi-Fi, and if something does appear, it's under full spiritual control. Girls study from textbooks, often without illustrations. Boys, from Gemara, Mishnah, commentaries. Classes are frontal, old school. No interaction with technology, no distractions, as the rabbis call them. In the rare schools where computers are allowed, they're machines with filtered systems, no internet, and only 2 or 3 installed programs. Usually a word processor, a spreadsheet, a halakhic dictionary. Allowed screen time. maybe a few dozen minutes per week. Example, Beit Sarah School in Bnei Brak has a technology lab. Computers with Windows XP, no mouse. Children learn to type letters on a keyboard. Sometimes they fill in a math test. Every session is approved by a spiritual inspector. Instead of multimedia presentations, oral storytelling instead of educational videos, primary religious texts. Instead of quizzes, recitation by heart. Instead of debates, silence. Teachers undergo training in didactic purity. How to avoid introducing secular concepts. How not to awaken curiosity beyond accepted boundaries. Because knowledge is meant to serve spirituality, not exploration. When children bring smartphones to school, it ends with parents being called in, spiritual penalties, and sometimes expulsion. Schools stay in contact with moral committees that maintain technology blacklists. In some institutions, students are asked at the door about technology at home. Do you have a TV? Do you know what YouTube is? Negative answers are rewarded. Positive ones, noted. There are also Life Without Screens programs, teaching time management, face-to-face conversation, and recognizing internet dangers. Even though the children have never actually seen the internet theory of an anti-world. In most Western countries, schools are busy integrating tech, even in conservative circles. In the Haredi world, tech is the enemy, even in class. Especially there, because that's where disobedience is born. Education without screens is not about moving backwards in time, it's a strategy, a systemic answer to the question, how do you raise a generation that never knows the light of the wrong lamp, and if a child never clicks, there's nothing to regret later. Not every speaker is for music. Not every intercom is just a piece of utility tech. In ultra-Orthodox Israel, there are devices built for one purpose, to transmit the rabbi's voice, and only his. The voice must pass. The image must not. Haredi communities use Kosher collective communication systems, closed, analog or heavily filtered digital PA networks, local, holy radio, religious phone lines, and megaphones for community use speakers are installed in homes, yeshivas, kollels, shops, even elevators. Their content, daily teachings from the rabbi, reminders of prayer times, halakhic instructions, spiritual alerts for times of crisis. Example, in the Harav Elyashiv neighborhood, the intercom broadcasts 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening. A pre-recorded rabbinic voice says, "Remember not to speak about politics today. It is a day of spiritual silence." Homes have special blessing buttons, devices that, when pressed, play Torah verses, commentaries, or short spiritual reminders. No screen, no internet, no choice. For the elderly and children, there are mitzvah phone capsules, phones with a single number. Call it, and you get a live or recorded stream of prayers, teaching, or psalms. Some synagogues have special microphones sending the rabbi's voice across an entire district. On Shabbat, the transmission is delayed or automated to avoid violating work restrictions. Teenagers in kollels sometimes use pure headphones, devices with no recording option, receiving only one audio channel. They look like white noise headsets, but they carry just one message. Remember who's listening to you. During the pandemic, many communities introduced halakhic remote solutions, Bluetooth speakers with certification, battery-powered rabbinic PA systems, and kosher Zooms with audio-only no video. In the UK or US, intercoms are practical. Megaphones are promotional. Radio is informational. In the Haredi world, a loudspeaker is a channel between a person and the spiritual hierarchy. You don't switch it off, and you don't change the station. Voice technology is not for entertainment here. It's for reminders. Someone speaks, you listen. You don't interrupt. Because maybe God is speaking to you through this intercom. And even if it's only a recording from the rabbinic office, the words have weight. The speaker is more than a device. It's the shofar of modernity. In the secular world, the state decides institutional regulations. In ultra-Orthodox districts, there are two layers of supervision. One, secular, the other, spiritual, and the second one often has the final say, even over who can use the office printer. Institutions, schools, local government offices, social service centers, operating in Haredi communities, must work in line with halakha and local standards of spiritual cleanliness. That means not only how they work, but also what equipment they use. Every workstation is subject to oversight approval. Computers have net-free or getternet installed config changes only with the knowledge of the spiritual admin. Example, in the municipal office of Bnei Brak, every employee gets a hardware ID. After login, the system checks whether any software was updated without permission. If yes, access is blocked. Employment departments, accounting offices, social centers, all run special versions of Windows. Hebrew interface, no browser, USB sticks blocked, no printing without a code from the rabbinic office. There are offices where each printer has a rabbinic token, a physical USB key that must be authorized by the community's tech elders. Lose it? You lose printing rights. Even office lighting can be managed by Shabbat timers to avoid workers accidentally flipping a switch at the wrong time. Women employed in institutions are required to use kosher phones. In some offices, they have separate workstations where hardware doesn't support voicemail or cameras. For purity of speech, example, Chana, working at a family support office, couldn't print a client report because the text contained citations from secular newspapers. The system flagged it as unapproved content. She had to go to a higher office to request permission for the printout. Local authorities cooperate with rabbinates to maintain spiritual neutrality of public equipment. That means supervised server rooms, filtered Wi-Fi, certified routers, and mandatory registration of every USB stick. In the UK or US, such procedures would be unthinkable in public administration. Tech oversight is secular IT. In the Haredi world, the state has to live with a parallel power, rabbis of the processors. In this world, even Word has to know Torah. Even a printer can't work without a certificate. And anyone logging into Excel knows that it's not just the boss watching. The rabbi might be too. If technology is a potential sin, then, according to many ultra-Orthodox interpretations, a woman is particularly vulnerable to its influence. That's why in the Haredi world, women's access to electronics is not an equality issue. It's a test of spiritual trust. Women are users under special supervision, not just when it comes to smartphones, but also computers, printers, music players, even washing machines and mixers. If they have too modern features, most commonly they're given kosher phones, limited function handsets with no SMS, no camera, no internet. In some neighborhoods, a woman cannot buy a phone without her husband's or local rabbi's approval. Example, Sarah, 35, runs a home business baking challah on order. When she tried to set up a profile in a delivery app, her husband took her to the rabbi. The verdict: this could destroy your modesty. She had to go back to notebook and pen. Women teaching in religious schools are not allowed to use a computer on their own. Materials are provided by a halakhic supervisor. Printing? Only from approved sources. Editing content? Forbidden. Children are taught that a woman shouldn't look at a screen for too long. Screens are sometimes covered with sheer fabric when a woman uses them. For spiritual protection. Women in offices work at special stations, where printers have only basic functions, and network access is agreed jointly with IT and spiritual supervisors. Any attempt to send an email outside the system is logged and reported. Daughters of rabbis are handled with extreme caution. No access to media. If they learn English, they cannot read anything beyond an approved spiritual canon. In some girls' seminaries, they are not allowed to listen even to instrumental music. even as audio files with no images. Communities have committees for women's spiritual tech, checking whether they've fallen for novelties. A woman who installs a health app may be summoned yes, even if it's just a period tracker. In most Western religious environments, technology might be regulated, but rarely strictly by gender. In the Haredi world, it's standard, because as some rabbis say, technology undresses a woman spiritually too easily. In a world where access to technology is a privilege, woman is the exception to the rule she may call. She may print, she may click, once, but only when someone else has already decided what's safe to click. Her hand doesn't touch, and if it does, it's under watchful eyes, and only what's approved. Not every technology in the Haredi world is suspect. Not every app is banned. There are also those who don't reject the digital world at all. They try to save it, to build its clean version, one that doesn't lead to sin, but to salvation. In Israel, there's a growing sector of spiritual startups, tech firms built by religious programmers, engineers, and rabbinic consultants. Their goal: develop software, hardware, and systems that align with halakha. The best-known institutions include Machan Zomet and similar halakhic tech centers, and there's a growing number of smaller initiatives like Kosher Tech, Halachic Soft, DatNet. Their products: certified routers, next-gen Shabbat timers, software for halakhic accounting. Example: the app Hezkuni, Strengthen Me, a spiritual calendar and day manager that not only reminds you of commandments but also limits time for secular activity. After 15 minutes of phone use, the screen goes dark and shows a prayer. Another example: Torah Drive, a spiritual external drive. It stores only content approved by a rabbinic authority. You can't copy films, music, or random PDFs onto it without authorization. It works only with kosher systems. Programmers in these companies work under rabbinic blessing. Every line of code can be checked for spiritual influence. The main question is not, does it work? But, does it harm the soul? Most projects are built in closed tech parks, in places like Elad, Beitar Illit, Kiryat Sefer. Entry requires permission. Visitors have to pass moral filtering and sign a commitment to spiritual discipline at work. The technologies are not patented in the usual way. Many function as a kind of spiritual open source. Rabbis share halakhic guidelines, engineers implement them, the community tests. Products are beta tested by yeshiva students whose job is to see whether a device or app leads to religious neglect, distraction, or even too much comfort. Startup employees are under spiritual supervision. Daily prayers, work in sync with prayer times, kosher lunches curated not just for ingredients but symbolism. In the UK or US, you'll find faith-based startups, but they rarely run at this level of integration with institutional spirituality. They don't have rabbis as chief content officers. In this corner of Israel, they do. These are not engineers of the future. They are guardians of the present. They build modernity that doesn't betray the past line by line. Code as a path to salvation. Every system has cracks, even the most sealed, even the one that claims to be spiritually airtight. And right there, in the micro gaps between halakha and impulse, they appear. The clickers, the watchers, the question askers, the tech renegades. In Haredi communities, more and more young people try to bypass filters, break locks, and reach the forbidden internet. Not out of pure curiosity, often out of desperation. To find out what really lies beyond the wall. The main tools of choice are stealth technologies. Hidden Wi-Fi hotspots, modified USB sticks, laptops smuggled from outside the neighborhood, usually from Tel Aviv, Petah Tikva, sometimes even from abroad. There are closed groups on Telegram, Signal, and WhatsApp, disguised under psalm titles or Talmud quotes, where young Haredim exchange technical tips: how to break net free, how to use phones in ADB mode, how to record without detection. Some use developer mode to remove monitoring apps. Others boot devices from SD cards with alternative systems. But everyone knows, If you get caught, it's not just social exile, it's spiritual sabotage. Moral committees track MAC addresses, sniff Wi-Fi, monitor Bluetooth activity. In some areas, there are tech inspector patrols, people with authority to check phones at the entrance to schools and synagogues. Extreme scenes happen: laptops smashed with hammers by fathers, smartphones thrown into the mikveh, a boy tied to a chair so he can't reach the internet, a girl sent to an aunt in another city because she liked a liberal female rabbi's page. There are also more organized groups, like Out Charitim textile initiatives, offering help for those who want to exit the system safely, VPN installation, encrypted browsers, psychological support. Motto: you have the right to click. In Western society, rebellion against tech norms is usually about money, privacy, or generation gaps. In the Haredi world, it's moral heresy. Every click is a manifesto. Every gigabyte is a risk of eternal punishment. Not every rebel shouts. Not every renegade wears a hoodie. Sometimes it's just a boy with a laptop, a girl with a phone under the blanket, and the question, why am I not allowed to read what another rabbi says? And the answer? Silence. Because the click has already happened and the trace remains, in the logs and in the conscience. Behind every spiritual rule stands something concrete: a market, money, strategy. In a world where technology must be blessed, power is not only in rabbinic hands, it's also in the hands of importers, manufacturers, lobbyists. Those who know that you can lock purity into a contract. The kosher electronics market is no longer just practice, it's an industry. It generates hundreds of millions of shekels a year. Home appliances, mobile devices, Shabbat timers, routers, software, all with a halakhic stamp, all with a margin. Products carry labels. Approved by Vad Harabanim, Zomet certified, kosher tech inside. It's not just a mark of quality, it's a pass to the market. Without a rabbinic certificate, you won't sell a fridge, not even with a discount. Example: a microwave importer in Tel Aviv tried to bring in a line of Sabbath mode devices without the blessing of a key rabbinic faction protests. A rabbinic boycott, contract lost. Let them learn that holiness is politics too. The kosher tech lobby works in the Knesset. It's backed by religious parties like United Torah Judaism and Shas, lobbying for subsidies for spiritual IT, grants for devices in schools, and stipends for electronic mitzvah support. Religious schools get funding only for certified equipment. Public institutions in Haredi districts are bound by spiritual network policy. The effect? The outside market barely exists. Only our suppliers matter. Organizations like the Halachic Industry Council or Zomet Labs organize fairs, conferences, demos. They test devices under Sabbath conditions. The results are public, but only inside the community. Outsiders won't understand what makes one timer good and another too modern. Introducing tech without rabbinic approval risks boycotts, public condemnations, even negative campaigns in religious papers. Kosher hardware is a brand. A brand needs a certificate. A certificate brings influence. Influence brings votes. Communities buy in bulk, on special terms. Rabbis negotiate discounts. Vendors know a blessing is the best marketing tool. In most Western markets, product standards are secular. In these Israeli neighborhoods, they are spiritual legislation. If a product doesn't meet halakhic requirements, it's not illegal by state law. It's illegal by communal law, which sometimes matters more. This is not just about spirituality. It's about who controls the definition of spirituality. Whoever has that control has the market. Whoever has the market holds the microphone. The smartphone is only the beginning. Kosher computers, kettles, printers, routers, speakers, all are parts of a system that tries to fuse technology with spirituality. But can that fusion really work? Or is it just a new form of control, wrapped in noble words? If this episode surprised you, made you think, or heated you up more than a kosher kettle, Hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Show YouTube it's worth pushing this kind of content. And if you know someone who uses their phone more like a prayer book than a gadget, send them this video. Maybe they won't click, but at least they'll read the title.